TRC EDC back again with another knife video. This is the Microtech Socom Elite, and this is the manual version. This is the auto version. This is one of my favorite knives. I did buy two of them because I like it so much, but I wanted to go ahead and give a quick review of this knife as well as some comparisons of the manual versus the auto and some size comparisons. So let's start out with some size comparisons. For the size comparisons, I'm just going to go ahead and use the manual version. And so let's take a look. This is the, I'll go ahead and put it out. This is the Benchmade Contigo. We'll start out with some larger knives since this knife is a larger knife. So you see it's a very similar size to the Benchmade Contigo. And here is the Benchmade Super Freak. Here is the Benchmade Griptilian. And the Benchmade Bugout. So you can see it's much bigger than both the Griptilian and the Bugout. This is the Spyderco Para 3 and the Paramilitary 2. And let's see, a couple other big knives. Let's do the Cold Steel AD-10, the Endura Ultratech. So you see it's about the same size, a little bit, the AD-10 is a little bit smaller than the Microtech Socom Elite, and the Ultratech is smaller in the blade and the handle. Obviously both of those knives are taller though. Here is the Spyderco Shaman, and then I'll do one last one here. This is the Endura XM18 and XM24. So you can see it's in between those two. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about some of the differences between these two, and then we'll talk about some of the good and the bad. So just as a first off, the Socom Elite comes in both a Tanto version and the drop point. These are both drop point. It also comes in a DLC coated and a satin finish blade, as well as I believe what's something they call the apocalyptic finish. And I believe this is not the satin. I'm not sure. I got this secondhand, but I think this is also not the apocalyptic finish. So there might be another finish option as well. So the apocalyptic finish, for those of you who don't know, looks like Endura's working finish, but a little bit darker, possibly acid washed. So that's it. And the DLC versions of it, by the way, are not full DLC. They're like this, where the flats are DLC'd, or the ground parts are DLC'd, I should say, and the flat remains satin. So let's talk about some of the differences here. So the main difference you'll notice right away is no thumb stud versus thumb stud, and you've got the auto button here, no auto button here. Otherwise, they're fairly similar in knives here. The other thing that's really different is the spacing of where the traction comes in. As you can see, there's a larger space here than here for the bottom, and this cross line is located lower down to that effect, but they both are similar in the area of where the grip ends. So just something you should keep in mind. The billboarding on both, I should say, is the same, although obviously it looks a little different on the two different finishes I have here. And if you want to see, by the way, the non-DLC version of this, I have that. I used to have that version, and if you go look on some of my older videos and some of the size comparisons, you could probably find it if you wanted to see it. Another thing you should keep in mind is a difference here. There is a liner lock here on the manual, but there is no liner lock here because the automatic has this button for the button lock automatic. So that's another big difference. Let's see. I think there was one other difference I wanted to point out, but it escapes me at the moment. Otherwise, they both do have the glass breaker here, and as well as most other general features of the knife. But I did want to point out the automatic is a hard-hitting automatic, and the manual is a hard-hitting manual. So both of these knives have some of the best action on any knife you can get, whether automatic or manual, and I really recommend them if you like that hard thwack of a noise, and not just a noise, a hard thwack of a feeling when deploying your knife, these are excellent knives for that. So I would definitely highly recommend them, and that's one of the best things about them. We're getting into the good here. One of the best things about them is the action, number one, and the thwack that it gives you when you deploy it. The only other knife I can think of that has the same satisfying thwack that I have is the Wee Chimera here, and you can really hear and feel that thwack of the Wee Chimera, and possibly the Berg Blades Slim. Okay, so let's talk about the knife. This is on bearings, and so for a hard use knife, it's just something to be aware of, but it has drop shut smooth action once you get past that second detent. See, once you break that detent, all of a sudden, boom, it just falls down. See that again. Boom, falls down, and it's got that nice detent that it locks into. Also, on the auto version of it, you can really hear the clicking in when this engages. So let me do that again because I think I muted it with my hand, but you can feel it here. All right, now compare that to the ProTech Magic 2. I'll do these both consecutively. So first of all, the Microtech Socom Elite. So here there's a lot more bass in this one, so just something to keep in mind. You'll also hear that the deployment hits much harder here than here. So, and this is a ProTech, and ProTech is known for their hard-hitting automatics. Now, the ergonomics on this are excellent. I don't usually like knives that force your thumb back. I like to go up over my knives, as many of you know, but the ergonomics here I don't mind at all, and you really feel locked in, both because of the grip here, as well as the ergonomic shape. And the nice thing about this is, even though you've got this guard here, because it's made for tactical use, so it's made for stabbing, that's why you have the guard there. Even though you have the guard there, you also have jimping here. So you have jimping on the guard and jimping here. The reason is so that when you want to make a pull cut, you can put your finger here and do a pull cut. And I really think that's a great idea and a great execution of a tactical knife, which this is. It is a tactical knife. It's made with tactical things in mind. It's part of the reason that you have glass breakers on the end and these guards over here. So, and what I mean by guards is, take a look at the Bugout, for example. You'll see the Benchmade Bugout and the bailout. So, Bugout is not supposed to be tactical. It's just straight across here at the top. The bailout, same design. It has this pommel here, which I do complain about because I don't like the location of it. And this is supposed to be somewhat tactical, even though this is not really a hard use knife. But these are hard use knives, and I really, in addition to the action, I really have to say the aluminum body on these. People complain about aluminum on knives. They sometimes say it's cheap because you can find aluminum really on some cheaper budget knives like Kershaw's, and you don't also see, you usually see titanium past a certain point. Now, I do have to say with automatics, it's very hard to find titanium automatics, but manuals you can easily find titanium knives for. So, for the $280, $290 that you're going to spend on these knives, people do complain that there's aluminum. But this aluminum, I find aluminum to be great. I like aluminum, and their execution of aluminum is excellent. I do know that for a while, Microtech had been using a higher grade aluminum than some of the other companies. I don't know if they're still doing that, but it's something to keep in mind and take a look at. As far as the steels, as you can see, this one is 204P, and this one is M390. So that has nothing to do with automatic versus manual. That is just the Microtech for a while was doing M390 and then switched over to 204P. They're chemically the same for the most part, and just different versions. This is Carpenter's steel, and this is Böhler in Germany. So I believe it's Germany. It's in Europe somewhere. I think it's Germany though. correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So again, the blade material, outstanding. The body of this, outstanding. The blade grind on this is outstanding. It comes very thin on the edge for a tactical knife, and it cuts extremely, extremely well. This thing is an excellent, excellent cutter. So I really have to rave about the blade here. Sort of interesting is the grind, and you probably see it better on this one, is it has this, you know, swedge cut out here, and then it comes back out to a robust tip, and then it thins out towards the edge. Now this is a very robust way of doing a knife, but it gives you that reinforced tip for that tactical use, and this also gives you some weight relief, which is why it's here, I believe, on the knife. Now, I will say that this right here, on some of the knives I've owned, I don't think on either of these, well, maybe this one, but on some of these, this ends up being somewhat sharp, so just be aware of that. It doesn't cut you or anything, but you know, so the test is to sort of go on your nail and go across. I think my other one did, but these two don't. It's just something to be aware of. So that's really what's good about the knife. Oh, one more thing, actually. The lanyard hole's out of the way, which I really enjoy. It doesn't get in the way of anything. So that's fantastic. What's bad about the knife? So as far as what's bad about it, the main complaint that people have is the pocket clip this is only for right hand tip down. And I used to agree and be in the camp of no knife should ever be tip down. But I am no longer in that camp. I have learned over time that sometimes it is better to do tip up, and sometimes it's better to do tip down. So tip up most of the time is great for most knives, especially up to about 3.5-inch blades. And that's because it gives you easy access to the knife. It hugs this up against the pocket. So that so for instance, you know, this is going to have the blade facing out in the right pocket, in the right hand pocket, so that if this deployed, it would come out while it's in your pocket. But if it was tipped down and it deployed, it might get caught and not actually come all the way out. So that's one of the reasons people like the tip up versus tip down. In tactical applications and larger knives, tip down seems to be better for a couple reasons. One is the chest rigging and molly and things like that, and the other real reason is that where you end up gripping the knife. So let's take a look. When you pull it out of your pocket, it's tip up. You're pulling it out here, and your hand is all the way down here. Then you have to readjust, come up, and put your hand up, or put the knife out. If it's tip down, you're pulling it out and you're already in position to deploy it. So that's really the main reason why tip down works on certain knives, and I think on this knife in particular, it does work well, even though I'll put it as a drawback, because I think even despite the fact that I'm telling you this, that most people would consider that a drawback. It is also a drawback for lefties, I will say that. Although I think tip down for lefties, as you can see in the left-hand pocket, it does put the blade where a normal tip-up right-hand pocket would be, so that the blade is not going to deploy while it's sitting there in your pocket. Or if it does, I should say it's being blocked by the back of your pocket. Okay. So, some other differences I forgot to point out. The screws here are not present here because of the assembly inside of here, and I was going to say there's one other thing with the assembly. It's escaping me right now. If I remember it, I'll pin it down in the comments. So just check down in the comments for a pin. All right, so I think that's pretty much it for the negatives. It has a near integral on the back. It's not really integral because it's still two pieces, but it just gives that integral look with a flow-through design, which is great. There's not a whole lot bad I have to say about this. I do think, this was priced much better at about $280 to $300 a couple of years ago. than it is now, because there's just so much competition in the $250 to $300 price range with great companies like We Knives and Rayot and other Chinese companies that are coming into the market, as well as some US companies that are starting to catch up. So I do want you to be aware of that. That being said, I think this is a knife everyone should experience. If you are a knife collector, if you are a knife nut, every single person should experience this knife. And if you're not sure about it, my suggestion would be go out on the secondary market. You should be able to find one for around, anywhere from $190 to $225, depending on condition. And if worst case scenario, get a real user for $190-ish, and just experience the knife and then resell it. You should be able to sell it fairly quickly if it's priced around that $190 mark. So that's a good mark to go ahead and buy and resell at if you just want to experience the knife. But thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all my content. Go ahead and like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think of this knife, if you own it, how long you've owned it. Oh, and one more thing I should mention is this is sort of a remake of, there was some prior version of this a number of years ago, which I don't have available to show you. So that's the other thing that I wanted to mention. Thanks again, guys. Have a great night.